I've been told Ukrainian forces have used British Challenger 2 tanks inside Russia.
The problem did not begin on the battlefield. It began in briefing rooms, inside design bureaus, and in carefully edited presentations where a single idea was repeated until it hardened into doctrine.
This footage is of a Challenger 2 in Ukraine.
Russia's T-90M was presented as untouchable, a modernized predator, a tank that had learned from every mistake of the past. And for years, that story went largely unchallenged, until it wasn't. What happened next stunned military planners. Not because the T-90M was destroyed in some dramatic single moment, but because the myth surrounding it began to collapse piece by piece. Against the British Challenger, Russia's most modern tank faced a problem no one in Moscow wanted to say out loud. The problem was not one failure, it was structural. To understand why this matters now, you have to step back. For decades, Russia has relied on a simple assumption. Western tanks are heavy, complex, and slow to adapt. Russian tanks are simpler, faster to produce, and good enough to overwhelm through numbers and aggression. That logic survived the Cold War. It survived Chechnya. It even survived early losses in Ukraine. The T-90M was supposed to be the proof that the old philosophy had finally caught up with modern warfare.
After the UK first allowed Kyiv to use its armour last year,
it was advertised as the ultimate evolution of Soviet armor. Improved armor packages, new optics, advanced electronic countermeasures, a redesigned turret. On paper, it was everything Russian commanders said they needed to close the gap with NATO. The Challenger, by contrast, looked almost old-fashioned, heavy, conservative, designed with a philosophy that prioritized crew survival over speed or mass production. That difference in philosophy is where the story really begins. The Challenger was built around a simple premise. Tanks will be hit, armor will be tested, crews must survive even when the vehicle does not. Every design choice follows that logic. Thick composite armor, separated ammunition storage, fire suppression systems that assume catastrophic damage is not a hypothetical, but an expectation. It is not a tank designed to win by intimidation. It is designed to keep fighting after absorbing punishment. The T-90M takes a very different approach. It assumes dominance through initiative. It assumes the first shot matters most. It assumes protection systems and reactive armor will prevent catastrophic penetration. It assumes the battlefield can be controlled through speed, maneuver, and electronic warfare. When those assumptions hold, the tank performs well. When they don't, the weaknesses become impossible to hide. This was not supposed to be possible. The T-90M was marketed as resistant to Western anti-tank weapons. Its armor layout was described as optimized against modern penetrators. Its fire control system was meant to rival NATO standards. Russian media portrayed it as a tank that could go head-to-head with anything in Europe. Then reality intervened. Against the Challenger, the engagement dynamic changed. British crews were trained to fight methodically, to identify, range, and engage with deliberate precision. The Challenger's rifled gun, often mocked as outdated, delivered consistent accuracy at long range. Its optics allowed crews to detect and track targets before they were detected themselves. In modern tank combat, seeing first often decides everything. Commanders did not anticipate what followed. The T-90M's theoretical advantages failed to translate cleanly under pressure. Its active and reactive protection systems proved inconsistent. Its turret design, still constrained by legacy ammunition storage concepts, remained vulnerable once penetrated. When hits occurred, the outcomes were often decisive. This was not a story of technological inferiority in isolation. It was a story of doctrine colliding with reality. The Challenger's weight, often cited as a liability, became an asset. It allowed thicker armor without compromise. It reduced the need to gamble on explosive reactive solutions that only work under specific conditions. Challenger could absorb hits that would disable or destroy lighter platforms. That survivability changed crew behavior. British crews fought with confidence that mistakes would not instantly kill them. The T-90M demanded perfection. Its crews were expected to rely on protection systems working exactly as intended, on enemy munitions behaving as predicted, on engagements occurring within optimal parameters. Modern warfare rarely grants those conditions. What happened next forced uncomfortable conversations. Russian tank losses could no longer be dismissed as legacy models or poor training alone. The T-90M was supposed to represent a leap forward. Instead, it exposed continuity with older vulnerabilities. The autoloader design, the ammunition placement, the emphasis on reducing silhouette and weight at the cost of internal survivability. Western analysts noticed something else. The Challenger did not need to outnumber the T-90M. It did not need dramatic maneuver warfare. It simply needed to fight on its own terms. Long-range engagement, superior situational awareness, crew coordination that assumed survival was possible even under fire. This created a psychological shift. Russian crews began to treat the T-90M less like an invincible spearhead and more like a fragile asset that had to be protected. That hesitation matters. Armor warfare depends on momentum. Once confidence erodes, performance follows. The implications spread beyond a single matchup. The T-90M was meant to anchor Russia's future armored forces. It was supposed to be exportable, credible, and adaptable. If it could not reliably outperform a Western tank design rooted in Cold War thinking, then the entire modernization narrative came into question. This was not a failure of metallurgy or electronics alone. It was a failure of assumptions. Russian doctrine assumed that layered defenses and active systems could compensate for structural vulnerabilities. It assumed that speed and profile reduction could replace brute survivability. Against the Challenger, those assumptions were exposed. What followed was strategic discomfort. Russian planners were forced to confront a reality they had avoided. Modern Western tanks are not just technologically advanced. They are philosophically different. They accept damage as inevitable and design around it. Russian designs still strive to avoid damage entirely. On a modern battlefield saturated with drones, precision munitions, and real-time targeting, avoiding damage is no longer realistic. Every vehicle is seen. Every movement is tracked. Survivability after contact becomes more important than avoiding contact altogether. The Challenger embodies that reality. The T-90M resists it. This forces reactions far beyond the tank core. Procurement priorities shift, training doctrines are questioned, export partners quietly reassess. A tank marketed as invincible cannot afford public doubt, yet doubt is exactly what this comparison introduced. The most dangerous aspect for Russia is not the technical gap, it is the narrative collapse. Once a weapon system loses its aura, it becomes just another machine. Crews stop believing, adversaries stop fearing, allies stop buying. The Challenger does not need to be perfect, it only needs to be reliable under fire. In that role, it delivered something the T-90M could not guarantee: confidence. This is why the comparison matters now. It is not about one tank beating another in isolation, it is about what modern warfare rewards. Survivability over spectacle, crew protection over theoretical performance, systems designed for failure, not perfection. What began as a quiet technical mismatch has turned into a strategic warning. The T-90M was meant to symbolize renewal. Instead, it revealed continuity with an older way of thinking that no longer fits the battlefield. This is not the end of armored warfare. It is not the end of Russian tank development. But it is the end of the illusion that incremental upgrades can mask fundamental design trade-offs. The Challenger versus the T-90M is not a duel. It is a mirror, and what it reflects is deeply uncomfortable for those who believed the myth. This moment will not be remembered for a single engagement or a single loss. It will be remembered as the point where invincibility quietly expired, replaced by a far more dangerous realization. The battlefield has changed, and some designs have not changed enough to survive it.